Hey y'all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a first look at a 4K resolution or Ultra HD portable monitor from Uperfect. This is the same company that we checked out one of their other portable displays, but whereas that model had the newer QLED technology or quantum LED, this one here has a more conventional IPS LCD. However, this one does have that higher resolution at 4K versus the 1080p or regular Full HD that the other monitor had. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Do you want something that has a slightly brighter, more contrasty look, or something that has a higher PPI or pixel density for the same asking price? One other difference here is the other monitor was a touchscreen, but this model itself doesn't support touch. It claims to have an HDR mode that can boost up the contrast as well, offering pretty vibrant looking colors for what it is, wide viewing angles up to 178 degrees, and in terms of the sRGB coverage, it actually claims to cover 100%. It does seem to be pretty color accurate, as well as giving you lots of fine tuning that you can further do. Also great if you're doing some Photoshop editing or some other creative work that requires some more accuracy. Now the brightness is also quite good at 400 nits. Now the box here is actually exactly the same as the one that they use for all their products. What that means is we get the monitor right on top. We'll take a closer look at, of course, later on. In terms of other accessories, we get lots of spare adapters and tips. There is a mini HDMI to Type-C. There's also a Type-C to Type-C, as well as another Type-C to Type-C user manual. And inside of this little box here is the power supply, which again, it comes in, also takes an input of Type-C. The monitor itself, again, comes with this folio case, which is once again magnetic, and it can attach onto both the front, which you can see the screen here will be protected. The inside flap here can actually fold inwards magnetically to provide some resistance and prevent it from toppling over. Also, the back can also be detached if you apply a bit of force. So like before, you can actually remove the entire folio case from the display. Indeed, the back is made out of this brushed aluminum finish, including the frames as well. So it does feel quite solid in terms of the build. Nothing is really made out of plastic. And there's also the mounting brackets on this particular model. This is something that's not found on many of the other portable monitors. And otherwise, it's still relatively slim and very lightweight. So on the side here, we do have one of the speakers, the second one being, of course, on the other side. As far as the keys are concerned, towards the bottom, we have a power key. There's also a menu button that you can use to cycle through the various modes, control the volume, headphone jack if you want to plug it into external headphones and speakers. The other side features the inputs. There is a Type-C port here that is used only for supplying power, and then a second Type-C here for video input, as well as micro HDMI port. So it's not a full-size HDMI, rather a little bit smaller. It's micro, but still it's nice to have this as an alternative to Type-C. I do wish that maybe they would have maybe added a third, so a second Type-C for video or a full-size HDMI, but 2 ports should still be sufficient, since for most folks at least will be just connecting it to one device at a time. And then we come to the front of the display, which again, the frame here is still made out of metal and feels quite good. And some first impressions here is, again, the bezel size on the bottom here, there's definitely a bit of a chin. It's not going to be invisible, but still is a relatively compact size for a 15.6-inch monitor. And overall, one thing I do like about the design is the display here is a matte finish. So it really isn't a glossy screen. That means it's not going to attract quite as much glare or fingerprints as something that's coated with a layer of glass, since it doesn't need to have that touchscreen layer on top of it. So it will reflect less light. And here's a quick size comparison with the aforementioned QLED portable monitor, also from Uperfect, the one on top here that we checked out last time, and the one on the bottom here is our new 4K monitor. The thickness of both units are pretty much identical, so even though this one has a much higher resolution, it's not adding much in terms of the thickness. And the minimalistic design language with the curved edges, which is a little bit reminiscent of a tablet, is shared on both models as well. So here we have it connected to a computer running on Windows 10. First impressions being that it is incredibly sharp, and you really can't make out any pixelation or dots as expected. So really it just looks extremely detailed. We can jump into settings, for example, and we can see that the display res here has been identified by default up to the full UHD resolution supported by Windows. No problems there. We can also play back some videos here to give you a better idea of that experience. Again, cranked all the way up to 4K and see how it does in terms of the viewing experience. It looks very impressive in terms of the level of sharpness that you're getting here, and very satisfactory in terms of brightness levels, as well as color accuracy as well. That's always a benefit of a LCD screen. Even if you tilt it slightly off axis or kind of lift it up entirely, looking at it from the side, colors don't really shift around. It still looks plenty sharp and as impressive as it does, even if you're looking at it head on. There's not really any blue shifting that you would typically see if it was a OLED screen, for example. Now again, this is the first 4K portable monitor that we've covered on this channel. Everything else we've seen previously has been just full HD. But back when these 4K portable monitors first hit the market, would have sold for $100 to $200 more than what is currently being asked by Uperfect for this new model that just came out here in 2021. So again, the cost of technology is always decreasing in this regard, which is great. Really the only, again, missing feature would be a touchscreen, but that's not to everyone's cup of tea anyways. Even a touchscreen laptop is not a function, the touchscreen itself, that people will often use every day. So if you've decided that it's not a feature that you absolutely need, also save you a few bucks on this model which omits that function. If you do want 4K plus touchscreen, typically you still have to shell out around $400 or so. Other great applications would include doing a bit of gaming, connecting it to other consoles, handhelds, as well as computers, and getting a very enjoyable experience thanks to the super high level of detail that you're getting. 4K output will require a bit more power to drive in terms of the graphics compared to a full HD monitor, but for, again, devices which support it, everything just looks a tad nicer, a tad sharper, and more crisp on this as far as the settings. Again, we can tap on the menu keys on the side here to really bring that up to kind of see what type of HDMI connection we're currently at. And we can also kind of tap inwards on the jog dial to bring up further controls for things like brightness as well as contrast. Image can also be adjusted, aspect ratio as well. Color temperature can even be fine-tuned if you prefer having, let's say, an emphasis on reds, greens, or blues versus everything being balanced. And other things we can see here include an HDR. So right now it's in the auto mode. When it's bumped up, you can see how everything just becomes a bit more contrasty, but you lose a bit of the color accuracy. And it goes without saying that you can connect any device using HDMI or Type-C onto this monitor. So we used Windows in that demo, a computer, but you can of course connect a smartphone, let's say a Samsung or a Huawei device, and that can also launch into kind of a pseudo desktop mode. Depending on your smartphone, will sometimes be capped at full HD or 1080p. So you may not even leverage the full resolution if you're using just a phone. But for the most part, it still is, again, a very seamless, easy to use experience, and you can just connect it and everything is just ready to go. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of this Uperfect 4K monitor. Portable monitors are also starting to become more popular and come down in price as well. So they're starting to be similar almost to full HD monitors in terms of their price point. So it could be worth considering if you want something with some added sharpness and pixel density, and overall also works pretty well in terms of being quite slim and also well built in this particular case. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.